Hello, welcome to Explore Classroom. My name is Jennifer Bergen, and I am so glad that you are joining us today. At National Geographic, we know the power of exploration, wonder, and storytelling can change the world. And this Explore Classroom YouTube show connects students from all over the globe with our National Geographic explorers for a short lesson and time for your questions. And today, our explorer is Martina Panisi. Martina is a conservation biologist who researches giant land snails. So this means that Martina works with others to protect the snails, and she teaches people how important these snails are to the biodiversity of our planet. Martina is part of a team called the Forest Giants Project, and their goal is to help protect the giant land snails of Sao Tome and Principe Islands. And they involve everyone in learning about them, including young learners like you. Today, Martina is going to tell us all about her work with giant snails, why they are so amazing, and how we can help protect them. But before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to welcome our guests who have registered in advance and are joining us from all over the world. We'd like to give a shout out to all the Wisconsin students in the Racine Unified School District. I heard there's tons of you today. Dr. Jones Elementary, Fratt Elementary, Gifford School, Gilmore, Goodland Montessori, Horizon Charter Schools, IDEA, Isla Haute Rural School, hey pals, Janes Elementary, Jefferson Lighthouse, Jerstad Agerholm, Julian Thomas, Knapp Mitchell School, Odia Core Knowledge Elementary School, Olympia Brown, Red Apple, Roosevelt, RUSD Virtual, St. Stephen and St. Agnes School, SC Johnson Elementary, School of Dreams Academy, Schulte Elementary, Tegart Kids, Turcanleys, the Valley View Elementary School, Wade Witts, and West Ridge, and so many more. We are thrilled to have all of you here today. And with that, let's turn this Explorer Classroom over to Martina. She'll tell us all about giant land snails. Take it away, Martina.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very happy to be here and welcome to my home. Remember that when I speak, if you don't understand anything, at the end of this session, you can ask anything you want. I'm going to be here for you, okay? So I'm not here alone today. As Jennifer said, my name is Martina, and I study and protect giant snails. So I'm here with a friend, and I want to ask to my guest, Gary, to be here with us. So Gary is actually a snail, and it was supposed to be a snail that I was studying at university, but then it was so cute that I said, it must stay with me, and now it's my pet snail. So every time we handle a snail, what should we do? At first, we need our hands very well washed. And then we can put some water on our hands because snails need water to grow. And here we have our Gary. Can you see it? If you see it, say, make this. Can you see it? Okay, perfect. Here we have Gary. So today with Gary, I will speak to you about giant snails. Who of you, have you ever seen a giant snail? If yes, you can raise your hands. Okay, if you haven't, okay, well, if you haven't seen it yet, it's normal. When I was a child, I also didn't even know what a giant snail was. And this now, having Gary here with me, makes me remember about when I was a child. And I want to show you. He remembers me the first time that I saw a snail. Well, it was very small and I thought it was a rock. So I was almost going to crush it. And then my mom came and said, no, Martina, stop. Just be quiet and wait. And then suddenly from the rock, two little eyes appeared. It wasn't a rock. So who knows where the eyes of a snail are? You can show, let me show you, where do you think they are? Are they here? Are they here? I can see you, where are they? Okay, maybe some of you are doing right. We can learn it better. Exactly, perfect. Okay, and the first time I saw these eyes, me and the snail started to look each other in the eyes. And I understood, hey, this is not a rock, it's another living being. And my mom said, you know, Martina, well, all the other living beings, it doesn't matter if they are small. All of them are important because we all live in the same place, in the same home, which is our planet. So from that time, when I was going in my garden, I realized that I was never alone. There were always some little insect, some little invertebrate, what we call invertebrate, that was crawling around. There were always this spider that was building these beautiful nets in a corner of our house, or this lynx that was always going to sleep in the same place at night. And I challenge you after this lesson, so if you can, go in the garden and just lay on the ground. What you will see is probably a lot of different insects and living beings that live there. Can you hear the sound? No, let me share with you. Okay, so what I understood is that all these living beings that live with us are important because all of them have their own story, they have their own favorite foods, they have their own favorite place where they sleep. And what about snails? Well, why are snails important? You know, snails are the plants' cooks. What does it mean? Every time the leaves fall from the plants, they are not wasted. Anything is wasted in nature. When they reach the ground, the snails arrive and start to eat these leaves. And then they transform the leaves and they become nutrients so that the plant can eat it again through its roots. And guess why this is important? So the trees need the snails that prepare the food for them. And why do we need the trees? Do this with me. Hold your breath. What can we do? Well, we cannot breathe because most of the oxygen we breathe is produced by plants. And if we need plants and plants need snails, in some way, we also need snails, right? But when I was in primary school, I understood that these species, these little living beings that were also important, and my friends that were living in the garden were disappearing in many parts of the world. They were endangered. Why? Because maybe their home, their habitat was destroyed. Maybe the place where they were living was polluted, and I wanted to do something. Everybody was speaking about cats and dogs, rabbits are important. And I was, okay, sure they are important, but also spiders, snails, ants, bees, all these little living beings live always with us. Imagine, now you think that maybe they are not with you in this moment, but I bet that in your class, there is at least one spider, one ant, or one fly that is there with you and is listening to this class. They are always with us. But if nobody noticed them, if we don't see them, how are we going to understand that they are disappearing? Who is going to do something to protect them? And that was the first time that I learned about a giant that was disappearing. And I want to bring you there. So to go there, we have to go to the equator line. Here you can see this is America, and we have to go to Africa. And then in Africa, we have to search two little islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Here we are, called São Tomé and Príncipe. And these small islands, even if they are small, they are giant. You know why? because there we can find so many species of plants and animals that only exist there. This means that if they disappear from the whole world. So now imagine that you are there. To do so, you have to close your eyes. Just listen. Are you closing your eyes? I'm seeing you. What do you hear? Well, what you are hearing is the sound of many birds that only exist in these islands. And imagine that you are there. In these islands, it rains all the time. This means that, do you remember how the soil smells after rain? Well, if you were in the forest, you would smell like this all the time. The smell will be wet soil and also the smell of the flowers and the plants and trees that live there. Now you can open your eyes and you can look. Here we are. So now I want to give you some tips in case one day you want to go to the rainforest and search for some giants to protect. First tip, never go alone. You see this river? Well, once it rained so much that this river got full and we were stuck inside the forest. And if it wasn't for that, I spent 3 days inside the forest, at least not alone, but with my friends, Felipe and Vasco. So that's very important. You never go alone in the forest because you never know when you're going back, actually. And then second tip, very important. Every time you enter in the forest, you're entering in the home of animals and plants. So you need to be very respectful. Imagine that somebody was entering in your home without even asking if we could. Well, this is the place of animals and plants, and we are just visitors. You are gonna find many species of animals there, and some of them you must be very cautious. So, for example, the black snake, we say that it's the guardian of the forest. Why? You must be very, very aware when it's there, because if it bites you, well, unfortunately, you're gonna die. And then third tip, you always bring with you a headlamp. Why? If you get stuck in the forest, you need some light. Otherwise, you need to wait until the next morning in deep dark without seeing anything. And the only thing you will hear is this. The sound of this little bird that will be your best friends and follow you everywhere because they are very curious of the visitors of the forest. And then remember that you always have to bring with you the GPS. This device, this machine, makes us understand where we have to go, where is our trail, so we don't get lost. But sometimes in the mountain, this device doesn't work. So we can get lost anyway. That's why we need to be always with somebody that knows very well the forest and every tree. And we can use a knife, such as this one you see on the left, so that we can make some mark on the trees to understand where exactly we are. And then if we want to study snails, we can bring a caliper. This allows us to measure the shell of the snail and understand if they are babies or adults. Then we can bring also a scale, so we know the weight of the snail to understand if they are healthy or if they are not. And finally, nail polish. Why nail polish in the forest? Well, it's non-toxic nail polish, and it's important because we can mark the snails, and every time we go back to the forest, we know if this is Luis or Paul or Giovanna, so we know exactly what type of snails you have in front. But now I want to tell you about the story of how we found for the first time the snails. Well, if you were in the rainforest, it will be very hard to find this species, the oboe giant snails, because before they were very abundant, but then they suddenly start to disappear because their forest, their home, was destroyed. So we searched for a week and we couldn't find the snail anywhere. And then finally, we understood that the snails were hiding in very, very remote areas in the forest, on the mountains, between the rocks. So before I show you the snails, I have a question for you. How big do you think the snails are? Show me with your hands. Okay, I see Jennifer is making some guess. Okay, so here you can see another species of snails that exist in this forest. Maybe too small, right? And then this is another snail we can find actually in Europe, but our guy is this one, the oboe giant snail. And this actually is already an elder, it's old. Why? Why do we know that? Because it's white here. It means that it was so old that the rainfall gradually removed the color of its shell. Because when they are young, they're actually black and violet, like this. So the first time we saw the snails, it was magic. You know why? Because we were in front of them and we finally found them. After weeks, they were alive. They were looking at us. And I said to my friends, hey, be cautious, be silent. We are probably the first humans they see in this world. So we need to make a good impression. And they didn't hide in their shell. They just stared at us. They were looking at us exactly in the eye. They were just like this. And we saw how vulnerable they are. They were harmless. They couldn't do anything bad to anyone. Of course, we were very happy to find them for the first time. But at the same time, we were also sad because we understood that they were disappearing so fast from our world, and maybe we were the last people that were witnesses, that were seeing them alive for the last time. So we were sad, but I have a question for you. So when we started to speak about the invertebrates, about snails, I told you that my mom told me that every living being is important despite their size. Do you think that as you are a child and you are smaller than a grown-up, you are less important than a grown-up? Of course you're not. Every one of us is important, as well as every living being is important despite their size. In that moment, we were few. We were the only one knowing how much important these giant snails were. And we were feeling very small. We understood that to become giant, we needed to tell the story of this snail to as much people as possible. And suddenly, it wasn't just me, Gabrielle, and the oboe giant snail. Suddenly, all together with the children that were living on the island, the adults and everyone started to listen to the story of the giant snail. And they started to understand how much important is for the forest and for us, and how much we depend to each other, and we need each other to survive on this planet. And this is the story of the oboe giant snail. And now, if you have some questions, I'm here just to listen to you and to clarify every doubt you have. Thank you for your attention.
Well, friends, we're about to wrap up our show, but I thought I would just ask one more question on all of our behalf. Martina, how can we join your mission and help teach other people about how important small insects like snails are?
So every time for insects and mollusks and any species that is smaller, I already told you that it's very important that we notice them, because if nobody notices them, nobody's gonna do nothing. So what I want you to do, as I told you before, it's go home, just lay on the grass and start to observe what you see around. Then research on the internet what type of invertebrates, what type of bees, snails, spiders live in your areas and are endangered. Probably they're endangered, but nobody's doing anything. So I like to say, when I look at my snails, that every species that is disappearing is waiting for someone to do something to protect it. So if they have nobody that do something, maybe they disappear from this world and nobody even notice. So that's the challenge that I want to give you. Go home and make your research on which endangered species of invertebrates exist in your areas. And that's the first step.
Well, Martina, I'm going to commit to talking to people about snails this week for sure. And I just want to thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here, to meet you, all of you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to everyone and to National Geographic and all the teachers. And it was very nice to be here with you.
Students and teachers out there, we're so glad to have you today. And I bet you're thinking, how can I get involved in more events like this? Well, you can register and join us next week. We're going to have a show all about protecting frogs with explorer Annie Peralta Garcia. And the week after that, we're going to learn about ocean voyages with a traditional Polynesian navigator named Lahua Kamalu. So if you register, you might be able to get on screen with us or even get a shout out. Go to natgeoed.org/Explorer Classroom. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Stay curious, keep exploring. Be sure to go out and listen and look just like Martina taught you. And if you're on screen, could you turn on your microphone and say, "Oh,